This is Garis book readings of my two published paper books, written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo Garis. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. This is chapter 4, entitled The Cosmists, from my book The Artilect War, Cosmists versus Terrans, a bitter controversy concerning whether humanity should build godlike, massively intelligent machines. Chapter 4, The Cosmists. Before presenting in this chapter some of the reasons the Cosmists may use to justify building Artilects, some initial remarks are necessary to clarify what is at stake in this debate between the Cosmists and Terrans. What is at stake is, in quotes, the survival of the human species. Never before has the stake been so high, and hence those arguments used by the Cosmists will need to be overwhelmingly powerful if they are to overcome the potential horror of the threat of the human species being wiped out. The enormity of the risk is so great that I dare say most people, including myself, cannot even imagine at an emotional level just how large a potential tragedy we are talking about here. In the 20th century, the Nazis wiped out about 20 million Russians. The Japanese murdered 20 million Chinese. Stalin killed 30 million in his purges, actually more like 66 million. And Mao starved 50 million Chinese peasants. More recent, ad living now, Mao killed about 80 million people. He's the worst tyrant in history. These are amongst the greatest crimes in history, yet they pale in comparison to the size of the tragedy if ever the Artilects decide to wipe out humanity. The tragedy would be total in the sense there would no longer be any human beings left to mourn the disappearance of the species. In face of this, the Cosmists, being human, must surely feel the incredible weight of the moral argument against them. Quote, "How can you even begin to think of taking the risk of seeing humanity wiped out? Cosmism is so monstrous, so horrendous, that you are inviting your own extermination at the hands of the Terrans. All countries have jails to incarcerate murderers. Murder is not tolerated. The infamous mega-mass murderers of history, as referred to above, are truly hated by virtually all human beings. How then can the Cosmists seriously contemplate such a horror as the risk of gigadeath, the annihilation of billions of human beings? Question mark. The answer to this question is found by appealing to counter-arguments which in the eyes of the Cosmists are even more powerful. As I write these words, I feel a shiver run up my spine. I have read too many history books which explain how new political or economic doctrines often begin with individual intellectuals or professors writing down their solitary thoughts, and how those ideas often end up generating wars that kill millions. Look at Rousseau's democratic ideas. Look at Marx's communist ideas. This shiver going up my spine comes from my realization that the arguments in this chapter, the first of their kind, may one day serve as the intellectual basis for some future political movement, which in time, I believe, will eventually result in the worst war in human history. This war will use the most destructive weaponry ever devised, based on late 21st century science and technology. I feel terribly guilty in many ways because I feel that my own work is part of the problem. As a professional brain builder, I am helping to create a technology that will enable Artilects to be built. Initially, they will be primitive, but they will keep improving. In the year 2000, I had a brain-building machine already built, capable of handling an artificial brain of nearly 100 million artificial neurons. I'm hoping that the next generation brain-building machine that I hope to build in the next few years will be 1,000 times more performant than the first generation machine. This day-to-day reality makes me very conscious of what is coming. Since I like to think that I'm also quite well read in the humanities, politics, history, philosophy, etc., I feel I have a greater insight into the longer-term social consequences of my work than many of my more engineering-minded colleagues. I feel profoundly schizophrenic about the work that I do. Deep down, I'm a cosmist. I often ask myself just how strong a cosmist I am, and how much of me is Terran. I'm certainly not 100% cosmist. If I were, I'd be quietly doing my work, not advertising its progress, and keeping dead quiet about the potential risks that massively intelligent machines may pose as a threat to humanity's longer-term survival. But I'm not a monster, I think. My second wife's mother was gassed by the Nazis at Auschwitz. Actually, I don't believe that anymore. She died at Auschwitz, but no gassing. So I know about, why do I say that? Because Gorbachev opened up the Russian archives in the late 80s. Researchers went in, found all the death certificates of the prisoners who died at Auschwitz during World War II. There weren't millions of them. There were 70,000 of them. 40,000 of them were Jews. And being death certificates, the German doctors put down the cause of death. The two principal causes were starvation and typhus. No mention of gassing. There was no gassing at Auschwitz. And so why did they die? Why did they starve? Because towards the end of the war, the Allies had shot the Luftwaffe out of the skies, so they then had the sky over Germany free for themselves. So they then started systematically destroying German infrastructure, the railways and so forth. So the food trains could not get through, and so the people just starved. My second wife's mother was gassed by the Nazis at Auschwitz. No, she probably just starved or died of typhus. So I know about mass extermination, about genocide, about mass horror. I live with its consequences. When my second wife was a 5-year-old Polish Jewish girl, she was handed over by her mother to a complete stranger on the platform of the railway station in Brussels, Belgium, where the cattle trucks were waiting to transport the Jews to the extermination camps. No, work camps. They were work camps, slave labor camps. Like the Laogai in China today, even as I read this in 2017, China has 1,000 Laogai today with 3 to 5 million political prisoners, according to Harry Wu. Look up his website, laogaimuseum.org. To me, the Nazis were monsters. The Japanese were monsters and are still unrepentant. Stalin was a monster. Mao was a monster. Am I a monster? Will my work as the pioneer of artificial brains, a technology and science that will very probably lead to the creation of massively intelligent machines within this century, inevitably lead to the creation of ideologies so murderously opposed and with so much at stake that a major war, the biggest in history, is almost inevitable? Question mark. If such a war does occur, killing billions, giga-death, doesn't that make me a monster, and the worst monster, worse than the monsters of Hitler, the Japanese, Stalin and Mao? Yet despite all this, I push on, because at the deepest level, I'm a cosmist. I think that not building the Artilects would be an even greater tragedy. The more I think about the longer-term significance of Artilect building, the more profoundly I feel I am a cosmist. But my mood swings. I will lie awake at night thinking rationally about the cosmic grandeur of cosmism, about what these godlike Artilects could do, and I feel the awe. Hours later, I will wake up in a sweat, having been jolted out of a nightmare. I see in vivid scenes the deaths of my descendants in about a century or so at the hands of the Artilects, who have become so superior to humans that they see us as vermin. The emotional reality and horror of it shake me. Normally I sleep rather soundly, so I don't remember many dreams, but this nightmare is recurrent and so horrible in emotional terms that it's capable of waking me despite my heavy sleep. So I feel schizophrenic about my work. I'm profoundly torn, swaying between my head and my heart, so to speak. With my head, I think about the magnificence of the Artilects, how godlike they could be, persuading myself with arguments that I will present in this chapter. With my heart, I am horrified at the concept and the prospect of gigadeath, whether at the hands of the Artilects directly or as a consequence of a human Cosmist-Terran war whose primary causes I and other brain builders are now in the process of creating. I had always thought that once the Cosmist-Terran debate had been well presented to the public, that when push comes to shove, most people in their heart of hearts would be Terran. They would not want to see their families killed for the sake of some vague, abstract, emotionally distant goal of building the Artilects, being so distant and superior that they will have almost nothing in common with us, so why risk paying such a terrible price for their creation? I invite people at the end of my talks to vote. Are you Cosmist or Terran? I invite my readers to ask yourselves the same question once you have finished reading this book. The first time I asked an audience this question, the answer surprised me. I was expecting a 10% Cosmist, 90% Terran vote, but the reality was different. The vote split right down the middle, about 50-50. I thought that this might be simply due to the possibility that all these ideas were new to people, so they didn't really know what to think, and hence voted almost randomly. A random vote will almost always come out with a 50-50 result. To try to change the percentage of the votes, I changed the content of my talks. I presented more clearly the horrors of gigadeath and showed more vividly the many powerful arguments of the Terrans, which I will present in the next chapter. But the votes stayed near the middle, 60-40, 40-60, 50-50. Gradually, I began to realize, I think, that the vote was reflecting a deeper reality, namely that the Cosmos/Terran controversy divides people within themselves, that is, within the individual. People would come up to me and say that they felt the same schizophrenia as I've been feeling for years. Only a minority of people were clearly in one camp. Some individuals have come up to me and said that I deserved to be killed if I persisted. I would answer, "You're one of the first Terrans. In the future, there may be millions, even billions, like you." But most people, I find, feel strongly both ways. I think the Cosmist case resonates emotionally with most people, as it does with me. I think it is in our human nature that the arguments I will present shortly in this chapter have a strong appeal. They are very strong arguments. They evoke our human sense of wonder, of exploration, of religious awe, etc. They are very strong arguments. However, the Terran arguments are also very strong, as will be seen in the next chapter. So I just feel depressed when I think about what will come. With two powerful, bitterly opposed, and in fact murderously opposed ideologies that are so evenly divisive, the likelihood of a major conflict is only increased. The bitterest of wars are often civil wars, where brother kills brother. The US Civil War, fought largely over the issues of the morality of slavery and the right to secede from a union of states, still divides ideologically to some degree the northern from the southern US states. The Terran/Cosmos conflict will be a kind of planetary civil war, because it will probably not be correlated with geography, that is, with one geographically localized group taking up more the Terran case and another geographical area taking up more the Cosmos case, although this possibility is not excluded. Well into the 21st century, the global telecom capabilities will probably be powerful enough to keep most of the world's citizens well informed about the conflicting ideas in this great debate. People will make up their minds according to their own personalities, abilities and interests, and not be brainwashed so much by their local media. The media will be largely global by then anyway, with thousands of sources of news and ideas coming from all over the planet. That's what we, ad-libbing now, that's pretty much what we have today with the internet. But individualized sources, for example, companies like YouTube, which is owned by Google, has been taken over by the Jewish elite, and they're now starting to censor. So, as an intellectual, fuck you, YouTube. So they'll probably go bankrupt because people like me and many others, the pioneering thinkers, have decided to transfer their content to other platforms. So YouTube will become boring, so less people will watch it, so advertisers will spend less money to have their ads placed on YouTube, and hence YouTube will spiral down and die. Stupid YouTube. Back to the book. Having now provided above a kind of lead into the arguments used by Cosmists, I'll now begin a more systematic presentation, argument by argument, in an order starting, in my opinion, from the most important and most powerful. I give each of these arguments a name. I'm expecting that these arguments are only the first few of many that other Cosmist intellectuals or sages will invent in the future. Since I believe the Cosmist/Terran ideological and later military conflicts will dominate our century, it's only reasonable to expect that many first-class minds will apply themselves to the intellectual rationalization of the two rival cases. As I start to write down these arguments, which I've been thinking about for years, another shiver goes up my spine. I feel a heavy responsibility for the future quality of life of billions of human beings. I feel in some ways that I may have started something that will eventually destroy them, and that in one sense I am doing this by choice. In another sense, I feel I do not have a choice, because the force of the Cosmist arguments is so strong that I feel I don't have any real alternative. The Cosmist case for me is just too compelling. Arguments in favour of Cosmism. 1. The big picture argument. The strongest argument in favour of Cosmism, in my mind, is the one I label the big picture argument. It has to do with the feeling that human existence is so petty, so trivial, so banal, so insignificant, that there are bigger things in life than those that concern human beings on a daily basis. Science teaches both me and anyone who's interested to learn that we humans live on a planet that orbits a very ordinary star that is one of 200 billion in our spiral galaxy. Our galaxy in turn is only one of billions in the visible universe. Furthermore, according to modern cosmological theories, there are probably zillions of other universes. In other words, our petty little human lives, which last an ephemeral 3/4 of a century, are utterly negligible in comparison with the age of the universe, which is billions of years old. As humans, we are nothing. We are of zero significance on the cosmic scale. Modern science has discovered that the laws of physics and chemistry are the same throughout the universe, so it's almost certain that out there a zillion different biological civilizations have evolved, that they have reached a stage of technological intelligence and then build Artilects to supersede them. It's therefore quite possible that there are zillions of artilectual civilizations in the universe at all kinds of different stages of development. As humans, we are probably too stupid to be aware of their presence and are totally ignored by them due to our extreme primitiveness. To such artilectual civilizations, billions of years older than we are, we would seem to them as a primitive moss would seem to us. That is totally uninteresting. This would answer Fermi's question. Fermi, the famous Italian/American nuclear physicist who played a major role in developing the nuclear bomb, was cynical about the existence of ETs, extraterrestrials. He asked that if they exist, then where are they? We have no sign of the existence of ETs, no proof. If life is common throughout the galaxy, as physics and chemistry suggest it should be, then where is all this life manifesting itself? It may be all around us, but we may be too stupid to recognize it. To get a feel for the big picture, you only have to look up at the stars. Alternatively, you can stare at a glossy colour astronomy book with large colour plates of galactic arms showing millions of stars, where each little white dot in the photo is a star, a sun like ours in many cases, which probably contains a solar system. their huge number is humbling. Our sun is as significant or as insignificant as any one of those zillions of stars. From the galactic point of view, would it matter much if the human race were wiped out? I think the universe would not give a damn. This kind of thing may have been going on for several billion years, as biological civilization after biological civilization reaches intelligence and then destroys itself either directly by its own doing with its own weapons or indirectly at the hands of its artilectual creations. The big picture argument is admittedly an intellectual one and may not mean much to most people. The majority of folks appear totally indifferent to the fact that there is a much bigger existence out there. It would therefore not surprise me that as the Artilect debate heats up, we may see a correlation growing between being Cosmist and being more intelligent. I suspect that those people with higher IQs are more likely to be open to the Cosmist perspective because they will be better educated and aware of the cosmic realities that science teaches. When I was younger and travelling around internationally on a shoestring budget, staying at youth hostels, I was always struck by the high percentage of young hostelers who were university graduates. They were not at all the usual cross-section of humanity. The higher intelligence seemed to translate into a higher degree of curiosity about other cultures, lifestyles and values. I suspect the Cosmist perspective will appear more to the more open-minded and more thoughtful person. I may be wrong on this, but that is my guess. However, you may doubt this due to the 50-50 vote results I mentioned earlier, but most of my audiences were at universities. I will be curious to see how the general population will vote in future decades. To the Cosmist, building Artilects would mean that they could become part of that big picture, whereas as human beings, we could not. For a start, we are too ephemeral. We die too quickly. An Artilect could be made to be immortal, and hence have all the time it needs to do whatever it wants. As humans, we are too stupid to figure out how to escape easily from the prison we call Earth. Our bodies and minds are too primitive to take a form that will allow us to be more cosmic creatures, to voyage easily outside the cradle we call Earth. If we consider how much scientific progress we have made as human beings in the past century with our puny human brains, consider what an Artilect could do with its giant brain and over billions of years. It would be so much more capable of discovering the secrets of the functioning of the universe and could use those discoveries to empower itself. It could use phenomena that we as human beings don't even know exist, or could not even understand if some Artilect tried to explain them to us. The more one reflects on such things, the greater the sense of awe one feels. I see this as a kind of religious feeling, similar to the religious longings of earlier centuries before the rise of modern science. Since I'm now touching on religion, this brings me to the second important argument in favor of Cosmism. It sees Cosmism as a scientific religion. And that's the end of this section. The next section will be 2, entitled The Scientific Religion Argument. I've almost run out of memory on my camcorder, so I'll stop here. Ciao.